Welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm Dr. Ron Dubin. I guess we're going to have a pretty good subject today because we're going to be talking to a couple local people here that have experienced the paranormal things that occur in buildings around the community, in caves, in the woods, and things that you never really think about. And they call the Tri-State Paranormal Investigators, or the TSPI. And I got a chance to talk with them before the show. And I guarantee you definitely want to stay tuned for this show because I'm a doubting Tom on a lot of stuff, and I'm going to probably ask him some questions, and we're going to talk about some buildings that I think everybody's been in over here. So it's going to be really, really kind of like hitting home to a lot of people. So we'll be right back, and stay tuned. This will be a good one. We are back with Talk of the Town with somebody who I've known for a little bit and somebody who I've known for just a short little bit, William Tribell. Thank you for coming on Talk of the Town.
Pleasure.
And Neal Williams, thank you for coming on Talk of the Town. This has been really really incredible. I've known you for a while, and I know that I've seen you around town here before.
And you worked on my knee.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I guess. Well, I worked at, I don't see your knee. Was it the right knee?
It was my right knee. Would you sign it?
Well, yeah, I signed it before, didn't I? Well, I noticed that your left knee has a hole and so
Yeah,
I didn't recognize that. But
yeah,
if you had a
it's
hole in
on
your
this
pants
one.
on the right side, I would have recognized it.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah,
Come
that's
on,
what it is.
stop that. Okay, so let's start with you, Steve, or William. I guess you go by William, but you have another nickname as Steve. So
middle name William S. Stephen
William
is
Steve.
middle
Okay,
name.
great.
Yeah.
Now you are a radio announcer with LMU. Is that correct?
I am. I do a show on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. called Spectrum, and basically I talk to my little byline is interesting people doing interesting things.
Kind of like what I do here, huh?
Pretty much.
Are you infiltrating my show here?
I think so.
Are you trying
I
to
think
take over
so.
my show here?
I love being on TV. I would love to do a TV
Well, I'm sure
version of Spectrum. Yeah.
you want to do talk? No, I'm kidding. Well, I'll be on your show now that you've been on my show before. I know
You're
you invited me
welcome. We
before.
almost did that.
We
yeah.
did. So Spectrum is on every Friday.
Every Thursday.
Every Thursday at what time?
7 p.m. Eastern Standard.
And the theme of the show is?
It's very loose. It's a chat show. I don't call it talk because we chat. And I have people of all walks and musicians, scientists, people doing the strange, the bizarre, just something interesting. If I'm interested, I think somebody might be also.
Well, I'm kind of like an uninteresting person because I don't do anything bizarre and out of the ordinary. So maybe
you just ran the Boston Marathon, and I'm sitting here on your couch on your TV show, so that's pretty
And I
interesting.
must tell the viewers that he wanted to know more information about this interview. So last week when I ran the Boston Marathon, he was calling me on my cell phone, and I was talking to him. I think it was about mile marker 2, so I think I had a little bit of energy. So so just anything goes on your show. You've been doing it for how long at the LMU?
Let's see, I started in October of last year, so I've maybe had 16 shows, and I've had people from all walks.
You're not from here originally.
No, sir. I was born in Kentucky. I have family that came from here. My grandfather was an attorney. My uncle was district attorney in the 60s.
In this area here?
In Middlesboro, Kentucky. And I was born in Frankfurt, so I was never really, my father's generation was the last.
So what brought you back here then? Was it LMU, a job at the radio station, or?
Well, yeah, I was in Budapest, Hungary for 5 years.
What were you doing in Hungary?
I went to Hungary. I was living in New Orleans, and Katrina had hit.
Okay.
And of course, you're never freer when
Right.
you've lost everything. And my wife is from Sweden, and we were up in the air. We came to Kentucky, we went up to Pennsylvania, and then we thought, you know what, why not we'll go to Europe. And should have been a year maybe, and it turned into 5.
And what'd you do in Hungary when you were living in Budapest?
Well, I'm a poet. I wrote a lot. I did a few readings here and there. Prague, all the Eastern countries I toured, if you will, and tried to get some notoriety. It helped me. It helped me. I mean,
You definitely like writing poetry. You've talked about this to me before.
Right.
If I would have thought about it, I would have had you brought some poetry with you, and you could have recited that. But we'll definitely have you back. I can see it's going to be sooner than later.
Very cool.
So we'll have you bring some poetry back too. So you still write poetry too?
I do, and at this moment, there's an exhibit here in Middlesboro at the Bell County Historical Society for Poetry Month, and they have a exhibit for me, a couple videos I did with things I did with other people as my readers, great voices.
You have a remarkable CV because you were the campaign director for a Alaskan senator that ran for president in 2008.
I was Louisiana State campaign, the state director for Mike Gravel in his bid for president.
Just plop your feet and get wet, right?
Yeah, it was interesting. I learned a lot. I learned so much about politics. I mean, I never knew the insides and the outsides, as it were. And
Neal, how about you? Now, you're from this area.
I am.
You've grown up here, and you've been doing many. I mean, you're a business person. You manage a lot of things, and I think you manage AutoZone today. Is that correct?
That is right. I've been at AutoZone for 2 years now, and I've managed many things prior to that too. But many things I couldn't even count it on one hand, or two hands.
On one hand.
I couldn't on one hand for sure, but possibly two hands. I've been a manager pretty much all my life.
So
in my working career.
So you're a professional person, like William over here, and what we want to talk about is the paranormal activities, the things that you can't explain.
Right.
Why don't you, because I'm learning myself, and again, I'm a doubter on things like this, so why don't you explain what a paranormal event is?
I'm sure anybody can say that they've experienced or seen something that they can't necessarily explain, right? Like, say, you're driving down the road, and just out of the corner of your eye, you don't even have to be driving. You can be sitting in your house or anywhere, and you'll see something walk through your peripheral vision, and then you turn and look and nothing's there. There's so many different things. That's just one of the easier ways to explain it. Other than that, I mean, it's just anything that's not normal is what paranormal is, pretty much. So, yeah, anything that's not normal that you can't explain, that's what paranormal is.
Was there any thing that you witnessed in your life that kind of changed you, that made you want to go into paranormal investigations?
It's kind of cliche at this point because it seems like everybody that's doing this has either said this, but when I grew up, my family, they're very spiritual. Christians, they've been, very Christian based. They're in cements of the community. They've always been that way. But they've always talked about, I guess, this place being haunted or a ghost of this or that or the other, And my family's Pentecostal, so they believe in the Holy Ghost. But that's another story. But anyway, I lived in a house when I was younger that actually was haunted. I would see things. I would experience things. I talked with you a little bit before the show.
Why don't you go into the details of what you experienced?
Okay. I was a teenager. I was 13 or 14. I wasn't dreaming. I was absolutely awake. I do recall this because Kentucky basketball was playing. I'm a big fan. But I was watching the game, and I heard my name being called, and I knew no one else was in the house. So I looked over my shoulder, and I noticed the kitchen light was on. Now, the kitchen light isn't one of the new schools you could flip on and off. It's one of the ones that had a little pull tab. Yeah. So you'd pull it and turn it on and turn it off. Well, it was on. I knew I'd turned it off, so I was like, well, maybe I didn't, So I walked back in there and I turned it off. As I turned to come back to the living room, I heard it click back on. And I turned, and it was on again, obviously. So I went over there and I turned it off one more time. And I watched it for a minute to see if it would do it, and nothing happened, so I started to turn, and before I was in a complete turn, it turned on again. So that's one of the major things that happened to me when I really wanted to understand what it was. I don't go into a place to say it's haunted. I go into a place to debunk, I guess. That's a good
term
word
that you guys use, I guess.
Yes.
You're like me. I mean, you don't doubt, you doubt it until you can prove that.
Exactly.
It
That's
exists.
basically what debunking is.
Okay.
And that's what we do. We don't go in to say this place is haunted. We go in to see if it can be explained.
Now, a 13 or 14-year-old kid seeing a light go off and on is going to scare the heck out of me and anybody else. Did it scare you too? And
not really, no.
I would have ran out of the house.
No, it did not scare me. I've never been, that kind of a person that would scare easily, I guess.
Right.
I've never have been. I don't know, but.
How about you? What is your first experience with the paranormal?
My first experiences with paranormal before meeting up with Mr. Williams.
Well, I should have introduced you. I mean, you became part of his group.
I did.
How many years ago?
Well, I was still in Budapest, Hungary, and I was doing some work with people here with those videos I make, vocals, and I met Neal through the internet, and I was listening to their show because it live streams,
Gotcha.
Ustream, and I called in, and we got to know each other, and I did an interview. And so when I did get to the area, I met up, I went in studio, and that's how it all
Okay, and that's
began.
been a couple years ago or something like that?
What, a year?
About a year ago. So you've been with us about a year.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you started believing in investigating the
Well,
paranormal.
to say believe, I'm
believe it, but you're a doubter also.
I'm a doubter, I'm a skeptic, but I'm very interested in so many things. And I've always had an interest in, like you said, paranormal just means the unexplainable, things that are a little beyond normal. And as you said, what is first experience? And I can tell you, when I lived in New Orleans, I lived in a shotgun house, if you know what that
exactly
means.
Shotgun.
And they
It's a
invented
long,
it.
narrow house, and you can put a shotgun from the front door to the back door.
Right, and it has a upstairs in New Orleans, so it'd be like a double barrel above and below.
Gotcha.
And so my house, it went like that, and the kitchen was at the back of the end, and then a spiral metal staircase went up to where my bedroom and bathroom was. And the kitchen isn't divided from the living room. And we had a drawer. It was the old-time drawers that didn't have the wheels. It was, you know, you had to lift it up, pull it out. It was full of knives. It was a very heavy drawer. And it would open and close. Well, it wouldn't close. It would open on its own. So I would close it. It'd be open in the morning when we'd get up. And one day, I was actually in the living room, and my wife was upstairs. I hear the drawer open, and I'm assuming she came down to, you know, be in the kitchen. And I look, and she's not there. So I yell up to her, "Did you hear the drawer?" And she's sitting in where she was, and I was sitting on the couch. So it actually happened in my presence. Now, can I explain that? I mean, who knows? But it's still enough to pique your interest. And since being with them, I've seen a few things. But
when we come back, we've got about 30 seconds left in this segment. When we come back, we'll talk about what you guys do now as an organization. It's called the TSPI, the Tri-State Paranormal Investigators. We'll talk about some of the buildings that you've been investigating on a more modern level, and I think the viewers will find it very interesting. I will say that as I sat down and talked to you beforehand, you know, I never really think about this stuff, but you know, you start thinking about, you know, maybe there is something that's
We made him think.
abnormal. Well, I do think, but I'm not a believer quite yet in this, but it's something I can think about. So we'll be right back. William Tribell and Neal Williams, we are having a fantastic time, guys. I mean, I'm not sure if we should do another show just on stand-up comedy sometime. We just gotta kind of poke fun at each other, because even in between the break time, we had a really nice chat on this. So let's go back to your paranormal investigators. I think you have a radio show that it's pretty popular. How many countries does it go to now?
It's been documented to actually have been heard in 26 nations.
Wow. So a lot of people recognize it.
Absolutely.
And you have a Facebook page, is that correct?
Yes.
we're not doing so good in Greenland.
Not Greenland.
They don't have computers. It's too cold out there.
Maybe that's what it
is.
is.
Yeah, I think so. What's the Facebook?
You can find us on Facebook, and that's going to be facebook.com/Tri-State Para. One word.
Tri-State Para. Is
Yeah.
that .com or anything
No,
like that?
just
I
Tri-State
don't do
Para.
Facebook.
Facebook.com
I have a presence.
/Tri-State Para. Yeah, actually, I think he has one, doesn't he? No,
I do have it, but I don't update. I don't look at it. I mean, I hope nobody trashes me or anything like that.
It's a
'cause
handy thing. Facebook was a great invention.
It was.
Yeah.
Idea.
I wish I was Mark Zuckerberg thinking about that about 10 years ago. Okay, so let's talk about some of the current things that you're investigating, and one of them is a well-recognized building in Cumberland Gap. Who want to talk about that?
Actually, it was an Angelo's. For the people that don't know who Angelo's is, it was Webb's prior to that. I'm not sure what some of the other names were, but everybody that worked there seems to think that it was haunted. And actually, before it was Angelo's, when it was Webb's, the prior owner to that wanted us to come in as well. We didn't get to do it at the time, but we got to come in recently, so that was really nice.
Okay, so that goes back to Sue Webb, and she owned it before it became Angelo's, and this might have been a couple years ago. What kind of things was she experiencing?
Pretty much the same thing they're experiencing now. The waiters and waitresses, they would say they would see things. You actually talked to them more than I did. What would they see?
Well, I live down in the Gap, and I spent a lot of time at Angelo's, and I took opportunities to interview each of the girls when they had time. They pretty much, when they were alone, it seemed like whatever the problem was, liked the young ladies, and when they were alone, weird things would happen to them. I think someone told me a whole serving tray was sitting very, very steadily on one of those things that they hold them on. You know, it unfolds and you set your tray on, and it just upended. So a lot of things that would make them jump, scare them. A painting fell off the wall, and one of the most major things to me was the security cameras. And now the security cameras will show motion, and it'll show a little red dot where motion moves. And in the paranormal field, there are things called orbs, and I think we're in agreement that we don't subscribe to the concept of orbs.
An orb is what again?
An orb it's like when you take a photo and you see that nice little round light,
Halo or something like that.
Halo or something, and sometimes there's a bunch of them. I'd rather think, and I think you agree with me, it's dust, it's a fly, it's a gnat,
Yes.
it's something in the air, and so we don't subscribe to that. But on the security camera, you would see these, and what was interesting is that they were setting off the motion detector. And a fly, a dust molecule, nothing
It would be something bigger than it.
it would have to be you or I. You have to actually, we tested this, and to set off the motion detector, you needed a good movement.
Right.
This wouldn't do it. You needed a solid movement, and we have that on film. And to me, that was probably the greatest thing we saw.
Oh, and speaking of which, too, if you remember when we were in Angelo's, we were talking to some of the patrons, and actually there was a former officer that
Yes,
was an officer
was a
in the Gap,
policeman,
and he said they used to respond to burglar alarms all the time there because of the motion detectors and stuff when no one was in there.
And that's another thing.
But that happens in all businesses.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But this is a little bit.
Well, the girls also, that is something that they would kind of allude to is they would lock up for the night, they'd go home, the alarms would go off at weird hours. They will get phone calls from the restaurant. Like everybody that works there has had this happen to them, where their phone will ring at 4 in the morning. They look at the caller ID and it's Angelo's, knowing nobody's there, it's locked up tight as a drum.
Wow.
And so a lot of things like that. And the girls, some of those young ladies would be legitimately frightened. I mean, to tears. They would cry.
When we'd interview them, they would actually cry.
Yeah. So
And
whatever
it's
it
been
is,
witnessed by more than one or two people.
Oh
This
yes,
is
all of them.
everybody that worked there.
independent to the not there. The stories collaborate when you interview them
Absolutely.
separately.
Right.
Mhm.
And then we did something with what's called a Frank's box, and that is, again, there's a lot of conjecture involved in that machine. I don't know how I feel about it, but
I don't know, what is a Frank's box?
it's basically, Neal?
A ghost box is another way of calling it. There's a guy named Frank that invented the box, and what it is, have you seen the old transistor radios, AM, FM?
Right.
Well, you know how on your car, if you're scanning through the station, you can push scan, and it'll scan,
Mhm.
and it'll stop on the highest frequency or whatever. Well, there's a way to actually hack it, I guess you could say, or rewire it to where it would never stop. It would just continuously go and go and go,
On
and
a
you would
fast scan.
yeah, and you would listen for either words that would not normally be said on the radio, as in curse words, names, places, events, responses to your
Okay.
questions. Sort of like a white noise. That's sort of what a white noise is, and what a white noise is constant noise and listening for something through the constant noise.
So how does it have to do with the paranormal here?
You're picking up voices.
Frequencies.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It manipulates
supposedly-
the
I see.
Supposedly,
frequencies.
a ghost is a magnetic electrical
I see.
entity.
Okay,
And
now, I don't believe in ghosts.
Mhm.
I don't know if you believe in ghosts.
I'm on the fence.
I mean, when you say ghost, I think of like Casper with a white coat
Right,
or something
right,
like
yeah.
that. But I mean, when you hear all these stories coming from the waitresses about getting called in the morning and things falling off, what are you thinking in your mind? I mean, you're investigating it.
Right.
You haven't found it, but in your mind, what are you thinking about?
The first thing I think, as I'm thinking when they're telling me this, what could cause this to happen normally? Why would this happen? I mean, what if a dish fell off? Maybe it was on the edge or something like that, or like he said, where it's upended.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it wasn't on the little holder completely, and maybe it did that. So I'm not thinking that it's a ghost automatically. It's like we were talking to you earlier. We don't go in thinking that it's
kind of debunk
haunted.
it.
Yes,
you
we go
believe
into
like me that it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Until you can't prove.
And
Right.
two, I'm like I said, I'm on the fence, if you will. And if there is a ghost, what is that? Does it have to be a departed human entity? Couldn't it be? There could be a scientific explanation for. Who knows? I mean, we've all heard the different realms of reality, or who knows? And that's where my interest lies. Is obviously you could see something that is unnatural, unnormal to your everyday life, and even still, I've not seen the full apparition. You know, like in the movies, I've not seen those things, and even then, I'd probably be like, how could I
exactly.
make that rational?
Right.
Yes.
My brother experienced something a number of years ago when my first cousin passed away. Something really unusual, but I don't have time to go into it. And he swore that it was something that happened. My first night after my cousin passed away, it was a cold day in Michigan, and they put a perfect peace sign in the front lawn.
Oh,
Wow.
And he never saw it, but he saw it in the morning. So, you know, I've heard a lot of things happening when people pass on for the first day or so. Something happens. I've heard that before.
Right,
I can't explain or anything like that. What's the most, so besides the one in Angelo's, what is like another example local here, or something that really kind of like, you know, took you apart and makes you really want to investigate? And by the way, before you answer that question,
Okay.
I just want to let the viewers know, you don't make money doing this.
Oh
This
no,
is not
no,
your
we're
job.
absolutely non-profit. We
Right.
make no money at all.
Okay,
This is
so
out
I
of
don't
our
want
own
people
pocket.
to think
Yeah.
that you're trying to
No,
advertise or anything. like that.
Absolutely
So-
not. Absolutely not. As for in town, it's like I was talking with you earlier. It was actually the first episode that Frank here at this wonderful station put on for us. It was on 19th Street. I don't want to say where it's at because they were kind of worried about it or whatnot. But it was a storefront place, and they turned into an apartment complex. And there was no electricity going to some ceiling fans, and they said that they would see the ceiling fans move. They'd see shadows, and they'd hear voices and whatnot. And we actually caught the ceiling fans moving several times, and that's actually here in town. And you know,
And that was how many years ago?
that was actually August of last year.
Did you put your hands up there to see if you could stop it? or
Well, you
something
could
like
see it
that?
actually in the episode. We're going through everything to try to find out what
that's
it
right.
could
You have-
wind, if you know it was off balance or something or anything,
Right.
you know, just to try to see if we can.
We have a couple minutes left. Besides your radio show, do you have a TV show that you do?
Yeah, we have a
also?
TV show, and it actually airs on the same channel that we're on right now here
What
in
channel is that?
Middlesboro. It's channel 22.
I'm kidding.
You didn't know?
Sorry, Frank.
Come on, man.
I'm kidding. Of course I know.
It's
I mean, Frank's my boss. I mean,
Yeah.
I should know. You know.
It's here on channel 22. It's on Friday nights at 10. And actually, he's been rerunning our first episode. I'm sorry about that too, Frank. It's just been very crazy. But we're starting season 2, May 9th, Friday night,
Great,
May 9th.
great.
So
Yeah.
we're going to have that starting May 9th.
And you're with that too, aren't you?
Yes, I'm in every episode of season 2. I came in late on season 1.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. This can be really good. I mean, you
It's
guys
a
are
good
getting
show.
well known.
Would you like to come on an investigation with us?
If I'm not busy, yeah, I
Okay.
would.
We've tried to talk Frank into it. He won't.
We won't do it.
I would do it. Yeah, I wouldn't be afraid of doing something like that.
Okay.
It's
would-
very interesting. I mean, I was amazed by the whole process. Still am. I mean, I enjoy it.
Wonderful.
When you do your next show, what are you going to be looking at? Do you know? Any idea yet, or would you get phone calls? from
Several
people?
different places, actually. Yeah, we get phone calls. People call us and want us to come and investigate
Okay.
and stuff. So yeah, there's several places.
And we're working on some bigger things here in
Yeah.
Middlesboro, in
Yeah.
Pineville, more in the Gap maybe, but we're wanting to do some of the more well-known, maybe even some of the official buildings,
Yeah.
if it can be worked out. We've been in talks.
I'll go with you to some of the little places. I'm not going to go into no official buildings.
Oh, come on.
Hi, Lord. It's been really great, guys, having you on the TV show.
Thanks for having us.
Yes,
Listen,
thank you.
we'll definitely have you again. It's a very interesting topic. You guys are obviously doing this because you feel passionate about
Yes.
it. It's not a job, a career. You're not
Not at
making
all.
a penny on this.
Not a
and
dime.
it's just because of interest. And I think because of that and because you piqued my curiosity, I might actually just go with you.
Please do.
Sometime.
Please do.
I'd love to do it.
It's a great experience.
Thank you. Thank
Sir?
you, William. Thank you, Neal.
Thanks, sir.
And we'll be right back. Wow, I'll tell you, it got me thinking. These guys have special equipment, infrared cameras that can see in the dark. They got audio equipment that can hear where a lot of human ears can't, and there might be something there that might be real. But in the meantime, I'm going to be skeptical, and I will definitely go with them when they get a phone call, and if I can make it, I will definitely check it out and maybe report back here, and maybe have Neal and William back on my show and talk about some of the things that we're seeing. So anyways, if anybody has any questions, they can call into the station at LMU. It's on Thursdays, and hopefully I'll be invited to be on their guest in a talk show sometime. So until next week, I'm Dr. Ron Dubin. Thanks for watching.